virtual worship service. We gather each week beyond our four walls to be together in these unique times. I am Reverend Jacqueline Luck, member and worship associate this Sunday. Community Church UU is a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. All who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning are welcome. Ours is the faith in action as we do the work of justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every being. We believe it is not necessary to think alike in order to love alike. We're very glad to have you join us in this service of worth giving. This morning, the announcements include, in case this is your first time to our service, our beloved minister is out of the pulpit on parental leave. She'll return to the pulpit September the 13th. We always send her our love and best wishes. In that vein, there is an email scammer impersonating Reverend Darcy, and it's not that she's been hacked, but this person is using Reverend Darcy spelled out as their email name and requesting favors. Obviously, if you receive emails that seem out of the ordinary or ask for money or unique favors, please contact the church or just delete the email. The sermon this morning will be shared by congregation member and new board president, Amy Earehart Lovelace. Amy is currently working as a mental health counselor at Milestones Mental Health Agency in New Orleans, where she works with children from the ages of 4 to 17. She is originally from West Virginia, though this is her 5th year in New Orleans. Amy and her husband of 21 years have 2 children. Amelia, who will be attending Benjamin Franklin High School this fall, and Quinn, 12, who's going into the 7th grade at St. Paul's Episcopal School. Both are participating in this service with their mom. Isn't that great? We have some Black Lives Matter yard signs at Community Church donated by the Board of Greater New Orleans UUs. To request a sign on a first come basis, contact Charlotte at office@ccuunola.org. Also, there's safety reminders for those participating in peaceful protest. There are resources for you in the Community Matters email you received this week. The City of New Orleans Embrace the Culture has partnered with 12 arts organizations to produce Artists in View featuring New Orleans artists. I believe that CCUU's Cynthia Ramirez is one of the artists. I do know she has a show up right now. Loud Theater, the New Orleans Queer Youth Theater, is a space where youth can explore varied and fluid performances of queerness, learn theater making techniques, and hang out. For more information, follow their Facebook page. These and a senior care resource for family caregivers can be further explored on Community Matters in your email inbox. Introit this morning will be sung by Community Church member Susie McHugh.
Hallelujah, some stars that gave us birth. Hallelujah, our sons are on the earth. Hallelujah, shall echo across the skies. Hallelujah, when beasts are shown us wise. Amen.
Thank you, Susie. It is Community Church's custom to light a chalice invoking hope and eternal truth to our worship service. Please join me in reading the words in the chat box together. I've lit the chalice in advance. I'll try to put it up here where you can see it. Okay. We light this flame to affirm the light of truth and knowledge, the warmth of love and community, and the fire of hope and commitment. Amelia and Quinn will read now the lesson for this morning for all ages. It's called, I Have a Little Problem, Says Bear.
You see, indeed I do, said the tailor. You are very handsome, but you need a scarf. And he wound a long scarf around the bear's neck. Said the bear. Then he shrugged and went along, looking worried. I have a little problem, said the bear. I'm just the man you're looking for, said the hatter. Now don't say a word. I have just the thing for you. And he placed a fine hat on the bear's head. Said the bear. Then he shrugged and went along, looking worried. Said the bear. Well, I can see you have a problem, said the eye doctor. That's why I'm here. She placed a pair of glasses on the bear's nose. Now, isn't that better? Said the bear. Then he shrugged and went along, looking worried. I have, said the bear, a little problem, said the shopkeeper. Well, never you worry, my dear. This honey will sweeten up your life in no time. And she handed the bear a jar of honey. Said the bear. Then he shrugged and went along, looking worried. I, said the bear, you have a problem, said the shoemaker. You need boots. She pulled a pair of boots from a box. A real bear needs real bear boots, she said. And these are the best bear boots I have. A perfect fit. Said the bear. Then he shrugged and went along, looking worried. At the top of the hill, the bear stopped. He looked back over the town and shook his head. He was worn out. The bear took off his hat and scarf. He took off his glasses. He kicked off his boots. He set his honey on the ground. Then he sat down on the hill and sighed. What's the matter? Asked a fly on a blade of grass beside him. I don't want to talk about it, said the bear. No one listens to me anyway. I'm listening, said the fly. Tell me about it. I have a little problem, said the bear. You see, I'm afraid of the dark, alone in my cave. There are no other bears for miles around, and I don't know anyone who wants to sleep in my cave with me. I dread the darkness all day long. That really is a problem, said the fly, but I have a solution. It just so happens that I am looking for somewhere to live. A bear's cave sounds very cozy. I can move in with you. What do you say? Said the bear. I feel better already. So the fly hopped onto the bear's shoulder, where she made herself comfortable. Then off they went together, looking happy. The end.
Thank you, that's grand. This is a moment in our service where we honor the joys and sorrows within our congregation. In this virtual service, I invite you to write your public message in the chat box during the hymn, and they will be recorded and they will be read after the music.
If I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions. If I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions. If I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions. If I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions. If I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions. If I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we can make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions. If I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we can make such sweet harmony.
I hope you can hear me. I got knocked off trying to get back on. Oh, shucks.
We can hear
I
you.
can hear you.
Okay, well, I'm just going to read to a white screen then. And the problem with this is that I can't see the chat box. I saw at the beginning that there's a mention of getting some Black Lives Banners. You can look at that. It's not really a joy or a sorrow, so you can check that out. Let's see, there were multiple happy birthdays to Alan and Al French and Mary. Mary Ann, but other than that, I don't know. If there's something else, maybe
Do you want me to read it for you, Jacqueline?
Yes, please.
Okay. So from Al to everyone, happy birthday to Al French and Mary Ann Godjaw. This is from Amy Earehart Lovelace. Thank you, Alicia and Susie, for the beautiful music. And from Mary Ann, it says, beautiful Alicia, what a joy to have you here. And from Howard Milkey, joyful bicycling, hold on, moves up, this week in the midst of rain and dust from Africa, what a sunset. And this is from Astrid Kimberly. A big joy these days is Emerson. And I wanted to thank everyone for their support and signs of love these past months. And that's all I see right now.
Thank you very much.
Can I add one? Can I just add one? I just wanted everyone to know that Jose Torres, who was at First Grace Episcopal Church, has been finally granted asylum. So
Wow,
That is
that's
so
incredible.
Yeah.
wanted to share that.
That's
Thank you,
incredible.
Liz. And thank you, Cynthia.
You're welcome.
So we have virtually lit a candle for each of these joys and sorrows, and we will light a candle, or it's still lit, for those that are unspoken and held quietly within your hearts. We want everyone to know that you need not be alone in your dark hours, just to reach out. And in that vein, the caring committee wants you to know, the caring team, that they can contact a UU minister for you if you would like that. And if you'll email them at caring@ccuunola.org. Our offering this morning, we'll have a lovely offertory of the Lone Wild Bird, but Community Church Unitarian Universalist is a self-sustaining congregation. Your generosity enables the congregation to fulfill its mission within and without the church walls. You can give online, and this is all in your text box, I understand, your chat box, at ccuunola.org/stewardship, or by text. And the number's there, 504-370-2659. You can make arrangements with your bank to transfer your donations, and you can mail a check to CCUU on Fleur-de-Lis. We will appreciate any gift that you give to support our church and its mission in New Orleans. Thank you. Back away. Beautiful. Our reading this morning is from Starhawk in her book, Dreaming the Dark, Magic, Sex, and Politics. It's a Beacon Press book. It's going to be read this morning by Amelia Earehart Lovelace.
We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been. A place half remembered and half envisioned, we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere, there are people to whom we can speak without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere, a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing. A circle of friends. Someplace where we can be free.
And the sermon this morning, Listening Well, by Amy Earehart Lovelace.
This is titled Listening Well. My best girl is snuggled up to my right, with her knees pulled up to her chest, her long white nightgown covering her freshly bathed toes. She sorts the pile of books we're reading tonight and places them in an order that makes sense to her, choosing which ones I will read and which ones she's going to read to us. She's carefully chosen 12 books tonight, 7 for me to read, and 5 that she will perform for us. Her tiny voice so confident as she glides over even the toughest words. My best boy is still wiggly and squirmy and trying to find the perfect spot to nestle in beside me. He's still winding down from the day, winding down from the world of his imagination that he and his sister have been in all afternoon. Today they spent hours building nests from twigs and grass, and then perching on these nests, waiting for the eggs that they took out of the refrigerator earlier to hatch in the backyard sun. My boy is still full of his giggles and silliness, and his pudgy little hands have several random household objects: a raw potato, a beer bottle cap, and a clothespin that's got dirty yarn tied around it that he's adopted over the course of the day. And these 3 items will now be his bedtime buddies. My boy won't settle down completely until I begin the story. Once I open the book and begin reciting the words, whether they are being heard for the first time or are well known to us, I'll feel the heaviness of my sweet boy press into my side. His hands will still and his warm cheek will press against my arm as he lets himself slip into the story. This is how we end each day together, and it's one of my most cherished rituals. In our house, we have many shelves of books, and I've chosen most of them deliberately. Sometimes I've chosen the book because of the whimsical illustrations or because the cover has a beloved character on it. But usually I choose the book because the story is one in which I want my children to hear, to learn from, or to consider, or to be wary of. The stories that I surround my children with are meant to shape them and guide them. I, too, have been shaped and guided by the stories that have surrounded me in my life. As an avid reader, I've amassed stories and lessons from books and articles since I can remember. More recently, podcasts have become a wellspring for me to learn the narratives of others. When I gather with my family and old friends, we always find ourselves recounting the vintage stories that we can't resist revisiting. We all have these collections of stories, don't we? In fact, we curate these stories, these chapters of our lives, often subconsciously organizing them into the ones that we highlight and the ones that we bury. The best and most loved of our stories are repeated again and again, passed down to our children or our newest friends, and they connect us to one another. Psychological research tells us that shared stories are one of the best ways to form bonds with another person and to create meaningful relationships. But those stories that get buried, the ones that we don't talk about and are never listened to, those are the ones that I'd like us to consider today. Because not all stories are ones that are easy to tell, are they? Not all stories roll off the tongue with an easy cadence. Some get stuck in your throat. Some are never spoken at all, and yet they exert their power in our lives anyway. We're living in very hard times, and there are terrible, awful stories, terrible, awful truths that our fellow humans have to bear. My training as a mental health counselor guides me to believe that we, as individuals, can harness the power from the stories of our own lives by telling them, by speaking them out into the universe. Talk therapy is based on the idea that when we give a voice to our innermost thoughts and feelings, when we pull those painful stories out of the dark and share them, we then regain control of our stories and ourselves. Having control of and insight into ourselves allows us to manage our emotions and cognitions more successfully, and in turn, to make informed and precise decisions about our intentions and actions for the future. So I'd like us to think about our hard stories today, because we all have them. I want us to think about our hard stories, our hard truths, our hard memories. And I want us to think about what it would feel like to have the ability to accept them as they are, as we are, so that we are then able to bring the fullness and the wholeness of who we each are into our CCUU community. I'm not asking that we be able to accept ourselves as we are in the next 20 minutes. That's certainly deep and personal work. I am challenging us, however, as a congregation, to engage more fully with one another and in our wider New Orleans community by simply listening, truly and deeply listening to each other as we tell the stories of who we are and where we've come from. My belief is that when we listen, we give worth and meaning to each other's lives. When we listen, we validate the storyteller individually, and we strengthen us communally. In the CCUU board retreat last summer, Reverend Steve Crump, Minister Emeritus of the Baton Rouge UU Church, said something that I think is so simple and yet so profound. He said that we all as humans want to be known. This concept of wanting to be known, wanting to belong, is well researched in the field of psychology, and researchers have determined that connectivity and belonging to a group greater than oneself are universal predictors of happiness across cultures and across age group. So we all want to be known. I know I do. It's one of the reasons that I have sought out this community. I want to be known. I want to be understood. As Unitarian Universalists, we've already made the commitment to accept each other. It's our third principle, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Thus, this is a place that we are able and actually invited to bring our whole selves. The smiley, shiny parts that we show to our coworkers and our neighbors, but also those unpolished and broken and maybe even ugly parts of ourselves. If we believe then in accepting the wholeness of each other, perhaps we can start by simply listening to one another. Let's attempt to listen to the wholeness of others, the good stories, the bad stories, the whole complicated narrative of who we are and how we've arrived here today as a community. In Margaret Wheatley's 2002 book, Turning to One Another, she proposes that we can change the world if we start listening to one another. Wheatley states, I still believe that if we turn toward one another, if we begin talking with each other, especially with those we call stranger or enemy, then this world can reverse its darkening direction and change for the good. Wheatley continues later to state that what is needed is simple, truthful conversation, where we each have a chance to speak, where we each feel heard, and we each listen well. She asked the question, what would it feel like to be listening to each other about what disturbs and troubles us, about what gives us energy and hope, about our yearnings, our fears, our prayers, our children? That's given me a lot of pause to think about that question. The Reverend Nadia Boltz-Weber is the founder of a Lutheran church in Denver that she named the House for All Sinners and Saints. I love that name. Nadia tells a story about a member of her congregation confessing some of her hard stuff to Nadia in a private meeting. And after she confessed the hard, bad, imperfect stuff to Nadia, she said, I knew that I could share this with you because I know that you've done way worse stuff than that. I think that's funny, but it also highlights a really important point. In order to share our hard stuff with each other, in order to feel and accept the hard parts of ourselves, and in order to be a good listener for someone else, we need to feel safe and they need to feel safe. The storyteller needs to feel as if they won't be judged or shamed or blamed. I've been practicing the art of active listening since 2002, when I first began my training in counseling. And I'm still very much a work in progress, as my children can attest to. The act of listening is quite different from the act of simply hearing. Active listening takes much more time and attention and way less feedback from the listener. Listening well also requires sitting with the uncomfortable. I often struggle, both professionally and personally, with being the listener that the storyteller needs. Our American world praises fast talkers and gregarious personalities, and it rewards problem solvers. While these qualities may contribute to one's success in many ways, they're unhelpful in being a good listener. When one speaks their story, they are, in my opinion, very rarely asking for distraction from the problem, asking for advice for the problem, or asking for any problem to be solved. Instead, I think most of us just want to be truly heard, don't want to be alone in their story anymore. Fred Rogers, AKA Mr. Rogers, said, "People have said, don't cry to other people for years and years. And all it has ever meant is, I'm too uncomfortable when you show your feelings to me. Don't cry. I'd rather have them say, go ahead and cry. I'm here to be with you." So let's remind ourselves, when we have the honor of hearing someone else's truth, of 3 factors that I think are important to consider when we aim to listen well. The first is that it's okay for us not to have the answer to someone else's problem. They don't expect us to. Just listening to someone speak their truth is actually very powerful. And we, as the speaker, often find meaning in our stories through talking about them, through the act of stating them out loud. Number 2, let's resist the urge to fill moments of silence, because these moments are important and they aren't our responsibility or actually our right to fill. Let's reframe silence as a necessary space that allows for reflection. And remember that our job as those who listen well is to simply hold that space for when the speaker's ready to fill it. Third, and finally, let's try deeply not to judge one another. There's no need, actually, to argue or agree with or disagree with what's being said. There's no need for us to evaluate the statements that's being made unless the speaker asks us for our opinion. Remember the scene I painted from my early days of motherhood, when my beloved littles were snuggled up listening to me read to them? Well, I had similar moments in my life when I was a child and I was cozied up beside my own mom. My mom was so patient with my near constant attempts to pull her attention away from my brother and sister in order to shine the light of her love on me. And she did often turn to me with her full attention and gave her time to me and my story. She listened to my stories of playground fun and many unfair school assignments and heartache. And she still listens to me today, although now it's 1,000 miles away and it's on a phone line. But I can still feel her interest in me and my story, and I can still feel her desire to understand me. And that act of listening makes me feel known and loved and worthy and unique all at the same time. When we actively listen to someone's story that they have bravely honored us with, when we can listen without judging, without fixing, without trying to minimize it or rationalize it or justify why it happened, when we just listen, we bear witness to and we affirm the authenticity of a person's story. We acknowledge their depth and their worth, and we show them that they are known and loved. And isn't that what we all want? I'm challenging us, our CCUU community, to listen to each other, to listen to those we haven't met yet, and to those we've discounted in our past, or ignored, or walked past. Let's listen well. Let's be the listener that the storyteller needs. Let's remember that we all want to belong. And sometimes others will want to find their sense of belonging in us. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much, Amy. May the love that gives to life its beauty, the reverence that gives to life its sacredness, and the spirit that gives to life its deep significance be strong within each of you and lead you into an ever-deepening relationship with the eternal mystery of life. Amen. We're very glad you joined us this morning for this time of worship and worth giving, and hope that something spoke to you, as it certainly did to me. Stay connected just because in just 10 minutes, we'll have a virtual coffee hour led by member and past president, Dion. We'll all have a chance to speak.